Hey everybody, it's Irene with BrainStormAcres, and we're going to get ready for Thanksgiving. On to the next step, the filling. Now, as I mentioned, this is a Pompeian tart, so that means we're going to be adding pumpkin. First thing, my trusty kitchen servant. You don't have to have this. You could use a spoon and a bowl. I have done that many times in my past existences. I just happen to have the luxury of a kitchen servant at this moment in my life. Okay, 4 eggs, 1 cup of ricotta. If you think about it, there's a lot of really good pies out there that use cheese. Ricotta is an Italian cheese, and it's just a soft, smooth, rather mild cheese. So the recipes will say something like a soft cheese of good quality or something like that. Plain pumpkin. This has no spices in it. It is the big can, the 1 pound, 13 ounce one. And we're simply going to plop this in there while stirring gently. Look at that serving girl work. Isn't she amazing? Everyone should have one. There we go. A well scraped can. Now we need 1.5 cups of sugar. That always seems like a huge amount of sugar to me because we don't cook with that much sugar for many things, but this does make 2 pies, so I suppose that's not shocking. And a heaping tablespoon of cinnamon and a heaping teaspoon of ginger. You'll notice this does have different spices than most American pumpkin pies do. There's no clove, there's no allspice or any of those other odd bits and pieces that we sometimes throw in. But it's not an American pumpkin pie. It's a Pompeian tart, a medieval tart. I'm going to let that mix well. And while we're waiting for that to mix, I'm going to work on the pie crust. I have my pie pans here, and I need to get my dough. Now my dough has been resting in the fridge for about, left my stupid watch on. Now my dough has been resting in the fridge for about half an hour. We'll see if it's cool enough. If it's not, I will stick it back in there, because I don't want it to get tough because it gets too warm. My mom had a piece of fabric that was packed full basically with shortening and flour, and it just didn't stick, and it was awesome. I had one years ago. It was damaged in a move where some things got wet, and the ones I've tried to get since then just haven't been as good, so I've cheated and moved on to one of these silicone pads. I'm trying not to touch this too much. I have warm hands, and I don't want my stuff to get tough because of it. I am going to flour lightly. Not too bad. Getting a little cracking around the edges, but now you can always piece your pie crust. It's not a sin. I know. My mother would have considered it a sin, but sometimes it didn't go well for her either, so it is what it is. Now you can roll this between 2 pieces of saran wrap. That's a great solution for beginners who are really concerned about their pie crust not working right. The one thing I would say is do try and make it relatively uniform in thickness. So don't have one side of it half an inch thick and the other side an eighth of an inch thick. Your pie will be kind of funky if you do that. It's not the total end of the world, but it's much better if it's a sort of a uniform thickness. Now there's all kinds of fancy rollers and stuff that will create a uniform thickness. I've never owned any. I can make it work without it, so it didn't seem like it was worth the hassle factor. We're going to roll pretty well today. Cool. And of course, the minute I said that, it's stuck in one spot. You can use a knife or a scraper or whatever to spatula to continue that rolling process if it does stick. I can see it sticking in just one section over here. That piece of dough must not have been quite as chilled as it's a little warm in here today. In fact, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stick this back in the fridge for just a sec. Yeah, everything is warm in here today. We have a beautiful sunny day, which is awesome because we've had the lousiest solar lately. And since we're off grid and we rely on solar heavily, it's never a good thing. Okay, part of it. It's sort of stuck over here. I'm going to just chop this off and make it work. Yeah. Okay. And you know what? It'll taste great no matter if I've patched it or not. So I'm just not going to worry about it today. I have too many things on my list of things to get done today to be worried about something simple like patching my pie. I normally leave my edges smooth. I don't usually do anything fancy. My mom sometimes did a scalloped edge. I mean, she had a couple of different things she did, which really pretty. But I'm going to be decorating this pie differently because it is a medieval pie. The use of additional dough to decorate the top, much as we would do, say, a lattice or something like that on our apple pies, a very acceptable technique. Now, the very first time I made this pie, as any of you who've ever well, anyone who makes their videos and shares them on YouTube has had this happen. Some charming woman posted basically, what the heck was wrong with me? Why would I spend so damn much time making a pie? And why would I waste all that time? She could have had 6 pies in the oven in the time it took me to make 2. And I shouldn't bother making the pie filling from scratch. I should just, you know, get the pre-made pie filling and just go with it and quit being such a, I don't know, she used some interesting terms there, but basically she didn't call me lazy, she called me incompetent, sort of. And I thought it was hysterical. We generally cook, it saves a lot of money, and it gives us a much better diet in terms of the quality and quantity and everything else of our food. So there we go. There's a crust. It's not perfect. It's going to be great when it's got a pie in it. These are actually, what do they call them? Pie crust stamps. I don't know. They're little stamps with a spring in them. It allows you to cut it and make the dough into the shapes that you want it. And then pop them out. Because if you've ever used cookie cutters, the whole concept of having the stuff stick once you've made it out is a real pain. It will put in the veins and such of the leaves, which is very cool, I think. We'll be using this pie crust to decorate the tops of the pies once they're all ready to go. I always scrape it because I have seen that even when a well-beaten batch, sometimes you'll wind up with a lump of cinnamon in some spot or something, and well, that's not the end of the world. You really do want to have, you're making the effort to make something yummy. It would be nice if everything really was yummy. Now we're just going to fill these slightly messy pie shells up. It's always interesting to see. There's times when you can't see the cheese at all because it completely incorporates. Now this batch was particularly smooth, and yet for whatever reason I could see the cheese a little bit more. It's going to be perfectly fine. One of the things you can do to get a pie to settle is literally just thump it. And I'm thumping on here rather than the counter, because the counter is granite and the pie tin is glass. I am going to make some leaves. Make the outline, push the plunger. That will make the center pattern. There we go. Then all I have to do is lay these gently on top. Putting decorative shapes on top of pies of all sorts was a common thing in the high courts. You make them look fancy. It's no different than if you go someplace and some of your higher end restaurants will, they'll add gold leaf. They'll do just all kinds of crazy stuff to your food. And you can see what sort of the effect you get here. Now what I could do is I can combine more than one design. So what I often do is I'll do the oak leaves in the middle and acorns in between. And you can get as crazy as you want to. Sometimes I get really crazy and do all kinds of things. And sometimes I keep it a bit on the more simple side. If you're going to be using a specific cut of pies pieces out of a pie, you can actually arrange your design so that each person will get their own leaf or whatever decoration you're choosing to use for your pie. Works well with the maple leaf or the acorn because they're a little bit smaller. A little harder to do, but not impossible with a oak leaf. You're not supposed to drop them, which I do sometimes. The world has never ended yet. I do say yet because it is 2020 and one does not want to push one's luck in 2020. You know, I have done this at Christmas time using cutters that make holly leaves. You could put the cinnamon red hots on the holly leaves in the center to make like a cluster of holly leaves and berries. You could choose to do it after the pie was baked, or my mom used to put those kind of things on cookies, so it won't hurt anything if you melt them a little bit. They just sort of melt. I happen to have been gifted this set of cutters by Henry's mom, Mumble years ago. There we go, cuteness. Okay, we're going to bake this. And just remember, in order to be medieval, it doesn't have to be weird. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because obviously we have a lot going on around here. And there's going to be more, and we're going to do some things special for the holidays. We're going to still be keeping you guys up with what's going on in the greenhouse and the yard and tractors and chainsaws and all that sort of stuff. I'm sure Henry will be doing a video on repairing the studio electricity, because without electricity in there, I'm dead in the water because it's too dark in there without electricity. So be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and until next time, bye. I'm going to be doing a series. I've had a bunch of people ask me to do some more cooking. I've had some people to ask me to do some of the crafty sort of things that we do. I'm going to be doing a combo. This recipe was originally found in a cookbook that we published called The Tudor Feast.